ahead and say and spell your name and rank and title.
My name is Brian Jones, Brianjones, and I am a commander, and I am the commander over the Southeast Area Command, also known as Frank Sector. Last night at about shortly before 7:30 p.m., several officers were dispatched to a possible water rescue in the 700 block of North Bluff Drive. Reports were that several people were trapped in the creek and that the water was rising rapidly. The first responding officer located a female that had reported the call to police and met with her, and she stated to the first responding officer that her son was trapped in the water. That first responding officer immediately went into the creek bed and heard an adult male yelling for help, and he was holding on to some trees in the creek bed. So the officer immediately went into the water to try to rescue that person. When he went into the water, he stepped off into a deep area in the creek bed and became submerged himself just as his partner was arriving on scene. The partner used a throw rope to not only assist the officer but also to rescue the male subject in the creek bed from the flooding waters. As soon as the officer and that person were taken to shore, that person immediately left the area without us having a chance to identify him. And then the officers were then met by members of the fire department to be treated for any injuries that they may have sustained at that time. And that's pretty much it.
So did both people just take off?
The mom stayed there. Her son left without so much as a thank you.
How high was the water? Was water over the roadway there in that area?
No, it was not, but it was close to a homeless camp, and so the people that were in the area were living at this homeless camp, and so once they rescued the person from the water, they then evacuated the homeless camp that was nearby the creek.
How big was that camp? About how many people, or did they have tents or structures? Can you kind of give us a sense of what was there?
They were basically people living in tents. I don't have an exact number on that, but it was a handful of tents, a handful of people, and they were immediately evacuated and taken to higher ground.
And it was just those two people that needed to be rescued?
Just one person. Just one person.
And the officer?
Well, and the officer, correct. I wouldn't necessarily say he had to be rescued,
Okay.
but he did need assistance getting out of the water by his partner.
Yeah, the initial tweet said a baby, and that sort of sparked a lot of confusion among people.
No, the original call said a child in the water, and when the initial officer got there and he spoke to the mom really briefly, she said, "My son is in there, is in the water." So I think he just assumed at that point that it was a child, but it turned out to be an adult male.
Can you give us a sense of, just how dangerous that situation is? Obviously, we can probably tell from the officer being submerged so suddenly, but when the water rises that fast, especially for homeless camps in those areas, like how dangerous is it?
It's extremely dangerous. That's one of the reasons, part of the ordinances for dealing with people experiencing homelessness and where they can and cannot camp is that we cannot let them camp near areas that are prone to flooding. We all know, living in Central Texas, when it starts to rain and rain heavily, creek beds can rise, low water crossings spring up all over the place. So it's a very dangerous situation for people living in that situation in camps near flood-prone areas that they leave that area. They're not able to camp in that area. It's way too dangerous.
So,
You said you moved them or evacuated them. Where did they go?
We just took them up to the street level.
Oh.
Yeah. There wasn't enough time for them to be able to gather their belongings and things like that. We just, for safety's sake, just immediately evacuated and took them up to the street level.
so the ordinance the city council passed last week does not include that specific language about creek, but I understand the APD training bulletin or training manual, says that those are dangerous areas, so you guys can enforce camping laws there. Can you explain that for us?
Well, you just have to be able to articulate that it's a flood-prone area. But I'm not going to get into the specifics of the training bulletin. We're still working on the language and the specific parts of the ordinances that we're working on getting the language out to clarify to the officers what those ordinances are saying and how exactly we're going to address those. So we're still working on the clarity of the language for the officers.
But if it's a flood-prone area, like where you were yesterday,
Exactly.
it can't be there.
Correct.
We'll take one more question.
What can you tell us about the video we're gonna see?
The video that you'll show is body-worn camera from the officers that arrive. Mostly it shows the officer going into the water to attempt the rescue. His body-worn camera shuts off pretty quickly once he is submerged, and then the other video is from his officer, his partner officer, once he gets there and is able to utilize the throw rope and some of the other equipment that we utilize in swift water rescue to rescue the subject that was in the water initially, and also to assist his partner getting out.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
What was the street name?